Oh, you're coughing? Oh, I got the table. Hey, we're just starting it up like normal.
Are you editing these days?
Not at all.
Oh man.
Native root coffee, butter coffee. There we go. Yours is already poured.
Yep. I'll just need topping off in a bit.
I have a glass today.
You big boy.
So,
Ching,
ting.
ching. All right. Cheers.
I'm a big boy now. So this is Native Root Coffee, nativerootcoffee.com, handpicked by the native Colombians, the NASA people. And you can go to nativerootcoffee.com. This is a non-sponsored brand on the John and Tara podcast because we sponsor all our own stuff.
For now.
At least so far. So John Tara podcast, like and subscribe, share with your friends, check out our shorts, check out all our links to our Instagram.
Were you gonna say longs?
Our longs.
Yeah, our shorts and our longs.
Our shorts and well, that might have been, that might have wanted to come out. Yeah. Yeah. I'm John, not Long John, but don't call me Long John. Ooh. And the kitties are attacking birds on the outside the window.
Bird right by the window. Exciting. Well, we're having a semi-blizzard, so she's watching the snowfall, and well, that's why I have my snow wintry shirt on.
And I have my zip-up sweater because it's chilly. We are inside though, so can't complain too much.
I hope not. Think you sleep out in the cold or something.
I slept good until 4 a.m.
And then what?
Well, there's lots of news. There's lots of financial news, political news, and we're not going to talk about any of that.
So you were up listening to stuff that early?
No, I just woke up at 4.
Well, the kitties were behaving. I mean, the night before, they were just, it was a full moon, and they were just like, hey, it's a full moon.
It's bright out.
Let's play.
Can we go outside and holler at the moon?
So I've got something to talk about if you don't have something to talk about.
I got nothing.
So the other day you said something that you've said before, pretty much verbatim.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm saying you've said it multiple times. It wasn't a novel statement. And I thought it'd be really good to discuss.
Okay.
Like actually get into it, because I'll go, ha ha ha. But we've never, I don't think, really discussed it. So you said basically verbatim, and you can explain yourself.
Yeah.
That women don't want to work.
No, I said they don't want to work that hard. That was verbatim.
Okay, so women, first of all, we should define a few things. Women, do you mean all women?
No, I don't think we should define anything. I think we should just talk about what I was thinking. I don't make statements for the entire world to feel good about themselves, and I only make statements about things that I see and I know. So you're gonna.
I'll be okay. Okay, it's passing. Never
Okay,
mind.
good. I was gonna hit the cough button, but so I don't. You know, the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard anybody say is, "Oh, all women." Do you mean all women? No, I don't know all women. And nobody means all everything when they say, "Oh God, every time." Oh, do you mean every time? No, you're just really upset in the moment and you're going, why does this happen? Right? And so, no, you had brought to me a situation about something, and it was a woman, and I said, women don't want to work that hard. And now every woman that we know is going to think that you were talking about them.
Yeah. I talk about all of you.
Are you talking about every woman we know, Tara?
All of you or none of you? No.
So yeah, it was just a statement that women don't want to work that hard. I mean, so I've worked my entire life mostly with men and mostly with guys and met guys when I was younger, right? Young men. And my assessment, the guys are always talking about the job. The guys are always talking about what they got to get done this week so they can get onto this other thing next week. Guys are always going into their garage to wrench on stuff. They're always fixing things. They're always working on things. They're always coming up with a new project that they can you know, it could turn this Jeep into a rock crawler in the next 2 years, you know, and women are always talking about vacation and their time over the weekend and their time at home. And they get, you know, guys don't come in and say, hey everyone, I had a fabulous weekend. You know, guys don't talk about their time off. If they're hunting, you know, here's the thing. Guys are out deer hunting. We got chased by a bear and finally we got rid of it. And then we killed 4 deer and 2 of them we had to search for, and it was an awesome hunt.
Yeah.
That's the story from a guy, right? A woman will be like, what do you mean you had to hunt for them? You had to chase them down. You had to find them. You know, where'd you have to find them? Were they by a creek? Were they by a stream? Were they on a hill? Were they in a dale? Were they? It would be, it's like, what other information can you give me so I can put this narrative together? A guy's like, rock on, dude. Yeah, you got $4. Awesome. You know, yeah, good thing you made it back. You didn't break nothing. You know, and so, you know, it's just the difference between the sexes. You know, it's men and women are different. They talk about things differently. They work differently. A lot of guys want to be at work. I have not met a lot of women that actually want to be on the job. So, you know, because if you did, you wouldn't talk about just the things you have to talk about. You'd talk about the things that you want to talk about. You know, me and my guys, you know, if I have a meeting, people will always present, guys will always present, hey, you know, you had talked about buying that machine last month. Are you still thinking about that? Is that still going to happen? You know, they're not like, you know, I mean, guys find out how many vacation days they have when they first get hired, and then they never ask about it ever again. They never go, is my vacation going to increase? They never go. And maybe some, you know, maybe the Metro guys do, but that's a whole different story.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted to start off in definitions, because I think obviously we can only talk from our point of view. And so, but going back for a moment, do you think that when you're talking about work, so you're talking about like going to a job, whether you own your job, like you're the business owner, or you're going to a job where someone pays you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you specifically mean by work?
That's work.
Oh, well, because you brought up the example
work.
of guys, you know, then going into their shop and, you know, modifying a Jeep or something, and he might not be getting paid for that. That would be considered more of a hobby.
Yeah, but guys tackle hobbies like it's their job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it,
and don't go off on me about how women renovate houses and do all this other stuff because they'll call a man to do it.
you're just making friends all over the place
I'm
right
trying.
now.
I'm
Yeah.
trying.
So when I've heard you say something like that in the past, I would get worked up thinking that you were talking about me, because I'm assuming because I grew up well, we're known in the Midwest here for having the Midwest work ethic, right?
Oh, I thought you meant us. We're known. John and Tara Bachland. We are known in the Midwest.
You are known, your business is known for their work ethic and
I'm
what you
rather
get done.
famous on the internet for certain things. So.
And originating from your dad as well.
Yeah. Family history. Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you say to even a woman, I'll say, oh man, now I'm making friends. But like if you say to me, well, women just don't want to work as hard, you know? It's like them's is fighting words, you know? Like what are you talking about? Because I know women, you know, your mom, one of them, who will, you know, doesn't work out, has hardly worked outside the home, but has worked very diligently within the home.
Now you're including all women.
Well, your mom isn't all women, but I
didn't say anything about my mom.
I know, I brought her up, but I'm saying
men and women are different. See, you're doing the woman thing. You're making it a bigger issue to start a discussion because you're bored.
Well, I'm bringing this up because I want to understand better, because I know in the past I would have just gotten worked up about it. Like, what are you talking about? Are you saying I don't work hard enough? What are you talking about?
So in the past, you would have gotten worked up about it, but you're working yourself up about it now.
on making a conversation, you know,
Oh.
because, you know, to have a podcast
We
and
have to talk.
we have to talk, and I don't think we've ever really, I mean, we probably broached this subject, but I think it's an interesting subject to work through. So in that statement, first of all, what I wanted to ask, is it a values-based system, statement? Like, when you say women don't want to work as hard as men, are you implying that that is a worthwhile thing to do? Like, that is, the harder someone works or the more they work, the more value they have?
Intrinsically, probably, because the more I mean, you can, you know, if we get into a discussion about working harder versus working smarter, right? Let's say somebody invests money, right? Somebody has a job, and, you know, one guy has a job and another guy is an investor, right? So the guy that has a job doesn't have the money to invest, so he puts his hours out there for labor, for some sort of labor, no matter what it is. Even if you bang on that, it's going to shake the camera still. So he can invest his time, right? The other guy might have some money and he invests his money. Now the return on the hours worked is immediate, right? But it's not ongoing. The return on the investment might take 2 years, 5 years. It might even take 15 years. But it might be, you know, multiples. It might be exponential multiples of what he invested, but it could also be lost. And, you know, and the guy that's working hours, he could work and he could get injured and not be able to work, and then his time is lost. And so there isn't, some people say there's a better way because they see people with wealth, right? And then there are people that work, they learn something, and then they multiply it and magnify it by hiring other people to do it with them, investing by putting your money back into your company, buying machines, growing your machines. That's your investment. And then if it all works out, then it could be something big, akin to a exponential investment, right, of just money. And so working harder, either way, is hard work, right? Because you're not an investor, right? You, Tara, are not an investor.
On a small scale, I have been
You're
an
not an
investor.
investor. You're not an investor. I'm talking financial investor. You're not in the market. You don't got $20,000 in the market.
I'm not in that sort of way.
100,000, 200,000.
I've invested in teachers and put money into
Okay, so let's just stick with what
businesses.
I'm saying, okay?
Well,
So
I'm clarifying,
you're not a
okay?
financial investor
Correct. I'm
Okay.
not a,
because you don't know how to do that. That takes work also, right? So if somebody grows up in the trades, then they learn how to invest their time and then hopefully grow that investment into something bigger. If somebody grows up, you know, going through school and learning investment, or they have a father that was an investor, generally they're going to be that kind of person, right?
yeah.
And they're both hard work. They both have risk. So yes, the general idea is working harder makes you more money. Now, people will say working smarter. Well, I'm an investor. Well, you know, I know investors who have lost hundreds of millions of dollars and didn't get it back. So I know investors who have invested tens of millions of dollars and didn't get it back. And so I would say harder work means more value, no matter how that hard work is done or how that value is won.
Well, I would tend to agree, because when I said that statement or the question, it kind of rang true already for me. And it's not that hard work does increase one's value. There is intrinsic value I think we have as human beings, but it increases your value. The harder, smarter you work, the more you learn, you get smarter, and your income potential tends to go up. So I think the other thing to define would be what is considered work. And we broached this before. I asked if working outside the home, you know, for someone or for yourself is considered work, or, you know, like you had implied, the guy working out in his shop to, you know, make a trick truck or something like that is work. But you said guys tend to treat their hobbies like work. They put the effort into them like work. And obviously you can see where I'm going, probably, that, you know, if men and women are doing the blue and the pink jobs in the home, so to speak, you know, there's plenty of quote work to do in keeping up the home. Or so, you know, if a couple is playing those roles, is her does her keeping up the house, for example, count as work?
You tell me.
Well,
Are you searching for validation?
I'm I'm um, I'm getting somewhere. I mean, I have my own thoughts and ideas, and I guess I'm asking you a lot of questions, and then you're turning it back on me. I could just tell you what I think, and rather than asking you
Well,
questions.
before you explain it,
Yeah.
on the amount of work it takes to keep up a home, all right, I will say that I was a single father for 12 years. I lived with my son alone, me and him, for roughly 11 of those years. And, or I'll say we met you when he was roughly 11 and a half or something like that, right? So I'll say 10 years. I was on my own. I did my own laundry. I did my own cooking. I did my own everything. And there was a couple times when I was in relationships and there was a helpmate kind of person that, you know, they didn't do much. They were more women that were like, you know, I don't cook, I don't clean, you know, that kind of modern woman. Or they did cook, but they didn't want to, or, you know, that kind of thing. It was a lot of fun. So I cooked, I cleaned, I took care of my child, I changed his diapers, I still trained martial arts, I still raced motocross, I still went mountain biking, my house was immaculate, and I kept up everything. And I had a job. So you can have a house that is, if the house doesn't get tore up, it's not a lot to clean up, right? If you have a lot of things in your home, there's a lot of things to take care of. So if you have a lot of surfaces, you're going to be dusting, you're going to be wiping, cleaning. If you have a lot of, if you have simple meals, you know, when I was a single dad, you know, my meals were eggs, chicken. Early on when tofu was big, it was tofu in there, mixed
AKA
in
square
there,
chicken.
noodles. You know, my cooking was very simple, and I would, you know, I would make enough so I would have food for 3 days. And so there are very simple and easy ways to plan around domestic duties. I'm not putting it down. I'm not saying it's not hard. I say that it can be made into more than what it should be.
I think there's a difference between doing the basics, you know, like, you know, just three squares. You know, you get oatmeal in the morning, you get eggs and beans in the afternoon.
It was actually
and,
oatmeal with eggs in it, but yeah.
Yeah, and you get soup from the can in the evening. You know, you can do the basics,
Yep.
but I think where I've come over the years is because I probably back in the day before, you know, having a household would have thought, well, yeah, that's just something you do to live. But there's a difference between, I think, having a house and a home. And I think if you want, and I'm obviously speaking of you're in marriage and you want to have a homey, nice, warm environment in your relationship and in your home, because I think that they're one and the same in a lot of senses. Like you can go into a person's house. I think we've all sensed this. You can go into a person's house or a couple's home, and you kind of get a feeling like, you know, if it's visually out of order, there's a sense like other things are out of order, right? And I don't think it's just a stereotype or an assumption. Stereotypes are often true. And so I used to think, I remember when I used to think this way, that, okay, everybody's got to make food, everybody's got to clean up after themselves to their degree that they want to. But in order to make a home, to have a warm environment, to have a relaxed atmosphere or a peaceful atmosphere, there's a different energy and a different effort that goes into it, because you can hire someone to clean your house, but they probably won't have the care and attention that you will have to doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, they can do a good job, like an actual job, but to have a home, where, you don't care if I bring out the spring plate, even though in the background here, even though it's snowing again,
Yeah.
you don't care. But there's something about, when I brought in all these plants, you're like, wow, that really cleaned up the air, and you got a machine to clean the air, which worked great too, because we also had a mishap in the kitchen, which did not bode well. The smell got stuck in the carpet, but both of those together. So I think where the communication doesn't go between men and women, and where even I in the past have gotten worked up, like, what do you mean I don't work hard? Because I take it personally, of course, right? You're saying that the person you said that you admired my maybe not admired, but appreciated my work ethic when we first met. Are you saying I don't work hard enough? Or I don't want to work hard enough? But here's the thing, if I were arguing with you, which I'm not, I would say,
Let's bring up an example of what would happen.
I would say, I know that you so we kind of have a ritual right now where we watch a comedy show. It sounds horrible, but the name sounds horrible. Kill Tony,
Doesn't sound horrible.
Well, it's, to me,
Killing means having the best comedy set ever.
Right. So you gotta know the influence.
So the idea is you're trying to make Tony laugh.
Yes, and Tony's the host. He puts on the show. He's the guy. And so we kind of have a ritual now when I don't have classes on Monday night that we watch that together. And I can tell, because you've actually said this before, one of your love languages is quality time, and another higher on the list is physical touch. You like to be touched.
Hey, we're on camera now. This isn't OnlyFans.
And so I make a point to stop doing housework, to put away, my phone, or, when I'm still getting texts, does this email look good? How about this, and to spend that time, rub your feet. And if I were arguing with you, what I would argue is that I am actually setting aside housework, because I work during the day, and so then you have to fit in the other work that needs to be done in the other parts of the day. And so I literally have to shut myself off and say, no, this is time for this, for us to be together, for John, for me to pay attention to the person that I love most in this world. And so I have to fight in a way to not take it personally that, my assumption is you're grouping me in with all women, and where the reality is that no, there are lazy people in this world, men and women.
If you bring up a problem that you're having with somebody, and my statement is, yeah, women don't want to work that hard. I'm not going to say Judy doesn't want to work that hard. I'm just saying in general. In general, it's a theme. It's not even a hack on Judy. It's a theme amongst women.
But why not hack on Judy rather than lumping all? I mean,
I didn't lump anybody. I just said women don't want to work that hard. I'm not saying all women. It's just a statement. One of the things we gotta assess here is, accuracy in speech matters. If let's say you and I are out at a public venue and I'm doing a speaking event, I'm going to be seriously accurate, right? If we're at home and I'm not saying you were complaining, but you were saying a situation that happened, because you're not a complainer.
Never. Hardly ever.
And I just said, yeah, because women don't want to work that hard, and it's just,
I basically just shared with you what was on a phone call.
If a woman says all guys are dogs, I don't take offense to it. What we have to pay attention to is what society is doing to us. Women naturally would preface a sentence, right? I don't mean this to insult you, but I just wanted you to know, and I'm going to say this, right? And guys are just like, dude, you smell like ass. Did you fart or did you not wipe? And or dude, get rid of the BO, put on some freaking deodorant. I mean, it's not like, oh, Bill, hey, I don't really want to insult you, but there's a faint odor of BO in there. There's a faint body odor. I'm not sure if it's you. Could you come a little closer? That guys don't do that. And since I'm a guy, I'm not going to do that. And if people get offended, if somebody takes offense or takes it personally, I mean, here's I have the 4 agreements listed. I printed them out on a nice sheet of parchment looking paper, and I put it on my office door. The 4 agreements, and one of them is don't take anything personally. And I subconsciously see that every single day. So I'm programming myself to be better than everybody. I'm programming myself to have efficient thought, to not get caught up in the BS of what other people say, because that could weigh me down. We started this with you saying, this is weighing me down. Here's a statement you said. What do you mean by it? I don't do that. If me and you are in a circumstance and you say something, and if I want to know what it means, I go, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, it used to weigh me down. I used to take, passing comments like that seriously, like you were implying something.
Well, good. You've been hanging out with me long enough. 24 years did it.
Yeah, maybe 23.
You got over it last year.
After 23 years.
No, and it's serious. It's totally serious. Here's what happens, and here's the lesson for the day. Most people get fed up with the things they don't like in people they're around often. Joe is going to do that again. I know he is. He's just going to do it again. And okay.
I hope you use that for the thumbnail picture.
There you go. I mean, you are a prophet. You are a psychic. You are a future predictor, because you think that, because you say that, because you act as if, right? And then it happens and you're like, see, he does it every time, and what I do is I go, okay, I'm working with Bill today, and Bill is super good at math and spreadsheet formulas. So when we sit down in this meeting, I'm going to task all the spreadsheets to Bill. He's going to love it, right? And Joe is really good at marketing and social media. And so we've got this huge campaign we're putting out there, and I'm gonna have Joe handle the campaign, and then I'll have him get the data over to Bill, and Bill will put it in the spreadsheets, and then I can get the data, the analytic data, and make decisions on where we're moving, how we're gonna market and strategize, right? That's what guys do. That's a meeting amongst men, right? And when you throw a woman in there, it messes up 3/4 of the guys in the room, because they'll be listening intently to the woman's ideas. 50% or more will not be very good ideas, and they'll compliment the woman on every single idea and say they're really glad she came, and they're glad she put so much thought into it, and they're glad that she, and it's like men will treat a woman in a meeting completely different than they'll treat men. And I hope women are listening to this, because 50% of what guys around you are telling you is absolute BS. It's even if they're never going to go on a date with you or sleep with you or anything, 50% of what they're telling you is BS, because they want you to like them, and they know that a woman that likes a guy is going to talk good about him, and a woman that doesn't like a guy is going to talk shit behind his back, because women are character assassinators, and men are just like, F you, and they move on. And in a meeting, I was in a meeting, and there was 8 guys, six to 8 guys, well, 7 probably, with me and the other guy, probably 8. And me and him started arguing, and we started swearing at each other, and we're kitty corner across the table, and we actually talked about fighting. we literally said, I said, he said, yeah, bring it over here. I'll take you down hard. He wrestled in college, and I was like, you're pansy ass wrestling. I said, your head's going to go through the wall. And and everyone at the table was getting all nervous. And this was a high level meeting over millions of dollars. And this is the argument we were having. And there was physical threats being thrown back and forth. And that's a guy meeting. Now, if there was a woman in that meeting, that never would have happened. That doesn't mean there should be a woman in that meeting. There should not have been a woman in that meeting, and we needed to hash it out. We were actually friends, and we became better friends after that. We understood each other more, because that's what the hierarchy of men does. It's like a grouping of it's like a group of wolves, right? There has to be a fight to figure out who's going to be the alpha.
All right. You taught me off here before I get.
Coffee.
And I'm gonna.
Need some more stamina.
I'm gonna moisten my lips.
All right.
Actually, not sponsored yet by Jane Iredale, a nice, clean skincare brand of makeup with beautiful options. It's the only foundation that has worked on my skin. So there we go. So you
Must
brought
be
up
high level because you have gorgeous skin.
Thank you. I have worked on it because I've had skin issues all my life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but that's for another time. Actually, I'm doing a skincare series on my YouTube channel. So check it out. From the inside out, how to have beautiful skin from the inside out. So you talked about a pack of wolves, and men are like a pack of wolves, sorting out the hierarchy. So we've been watching / rewatching the Yellowstone series. And you're rewatching, I'm watching most of them for the first time. And, it's a very popular series. And I think about that sometimes as I'm watching, a movie or a series that's considered very popular or well-liked, or even like a great piece of music or something. Why is this so, well, it resonates, right? It has to resonate. Like you stopped another series we were watching and you're like, that's crap, and we're going to go back to Yellowstone. And I think what it is, and I've heard people who do this kind of analysis say that, you have to be able to identify with the characters and maybe, and I'll just go on one instance for Yellowstone. So what season are we in right now? Like 3 or
Season
something
3,
like
episode 7.
Okay, great. Yeah, good thing you're keeping track. So this ranch, 7th generation ranch in Montana that the family's been protecting for generations, thousands of acres, and is always under attack, right? This group is trying to steal it. This group is trying to take some part of it.
Land developers want to come in and build.
Right, it's under threat because of taxes and then price control for cattle, and the protagonist, the main character, who's played by Kevin Costner, is like basically said, when you have something worthwhile, people are going to want to take it from you. And I think even if you're not a rancher, that applies to many areas of life, right? I mean, you could be, maybe you have the most desirable husband and you have to fend off all the women, or, we've dealt with it in our business, you have patented work and people have tried to sneak in and
patented product.
And the same has happened for my business. And yes, if you have something worthwhile, people are going to desire it, and some people may try to take it or sabotage it. And so we kind of got off from the work aspect.
Yellowstone Ranch, by the way, is 776,000 acres.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. So what I'm getting at is, what was I getting at? You were talking about men and they're like wolves in the hierarchy. I think that a lot of what we talk about is men and women in, let's say, quote, traditional type of roles or their traditional type of temperament, right? So you're talking about, this is what I wanted to get into too, is environment. So you have typically been working with engineers,
Machinists,
machinists.
tool makers, yeah.
So that's a different environment than, let's say, a hospital with doctors and nurses.
Or an office building, or, yeah.
Right, you're going to get different personalities. Now, the same types of things conceptually might happen, like the fight, right? Like the threat of fighting.
Yeah, there was no fight, but yeah.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
It was verbal fight.
In Yellowstone or in a soap opera. I mean, it's basically it's a modern day soap opera novella. They take it to life and death situations. Like they are knocking people off who are threatening their livelihood. And so what I'm saying is there are degrees to these types of situations. What you're saying sounds very extreme, but if you actually look at it more, well, to some people it sounds really extreme.
Well,
Because
yeah,
most people are not sitting in a meeting.
Yeah, to a toddle or a high jump is something that's unattainable.
Yeah, but I would say most people are probably not sitting in a meeting where
There's millions of dollars on the line,
and physical threats.
and people are arguing about it.
Right.
And if they were, they would do the same thing.
Well, it happens, you might even be fighting over a family estate after.
You have to stand your ground when you're in business and you offer a service. When you're in business, your two worst enemies are your customers and your employees, because your employees want to work less and make more money, and your customers want more product for less money. And so they're opposed to each other, right? They're opposite. Both ends is pulling in the wrong direction for the business. So you are literally in a battle. And sometimes you go to war. There are skirmishes. There are snipers. Right. It's The Art of War is a beautiful book for business. And
so I would say my experience, not just my opinion, but when I have contracted women to work in various roles, I would say the women compared to the women work very hard and they're very thorough. But they're typically more limited. They will limit the time that they will work.
That's what I mean when I said that.
So here we're clarifying, right? Guys, on the other hand, typically almost always are not as thorough. I have to go back to them for something else to complete. But
Depends on who you're working with.
But I'll get that done this weekend. I'll take care of that right now. I'll push out this meeting or something. So that's, in my experience, that's the difference. And you're agreeing, it sounds like. Yeah, there are typically more thorough and less thorough guys, but
guys will prioritize automatically, no matter what you tell them. They will have a hierarchy list of what needs to be done sooner than later. They will categorize what's going to take them longer, what's going to be quicker, and they will then prioritize how and when they do things. And I think that you fell into the trap of society right now. I think that you made it about men versus women, and all I did was I made a comment. So you're still caught in a little bit of that women's lib that you were raised with, because I said something about women, you had to compare it to men. I didn't say women don't want to work that much, you should hire a bunch of guys. I didn't make it about men and women. You made it about men and women, because if you listen to any political things and somebody says something about President Biden, if the other person is for Biden, they'll automatically refer to Donald Trump.
Well,
and they'll say a counterpoint about Trump instead of answering the question about Biden. And that is throughout our society right now. That's the only divide. The only divide is people won't look in the mirror, and they won't make people take accountability for the things that they do, the things that they say, the behaviors that they have. And that's all I'm saying. When you brought this issue to me and I said, that's because women don't want to work that hard, that's insight for you. It's not a conversation. It's not a point for point and a counterpoint for counterpoint and then a discussion about men and women. That is not what it is. But society has dumbed people down so much that that's what they think everything is.
Then why not say, now we're discussing the topic, right? I'm not arguing with
Yeah,
you.
if me
But
and-
why not say some people don't want to work that hard? Because by you saying women, you're giving me the line to then,
Because you brought it to
potential
me
counter.
as this person who is a woman. You didn't say this woman, but you told me who it was.
yeah,
And I knew it was a woman. And so then I made a comment about women.
right. So arguably, you could have been the first one who actually presented the men versus women by first
No,
stating
didn't.
that women
Didn't do it.
don't want to work that hard.
Didn't say anything about men. The inference in your brain is a problem. The link in your mind to something else that then automatically protects that with which you have been trained to fight for.
So let's take it into
That's an
another.
automatic reaction based on your training.
Sometimes we make the good old,
If somebody looked at you and
Marsh-
said, 40-year-old women with blonde hair that are married to John,
God bless them.
well, take out the married to John. I just did that for humor.
Okay.
So the 40-year-old women that are married are this. I wouldn't take offense. I wouldn't say, my wife isn't that way. I'd be like, yeah, probably. They probably are. I wouldn't, dogs bite people. Not my dog. That's like a retarded way of thinking. It's very, very bad. It's a very bad way of thinking because you're not having an original thought. You're not deeply discerning the issue at hand. You're going to a position, not you personally, but we're talking about you. You go to a position of defense. Yeah, but I know that men aren't as thorough as women, and because of that, it's like, no. Have an original thought. Say, you know what? Yeah, there's a very good point that you made, and I made other points. I'm going to call that person right now. I'm going to tell them, if you don't do this, I can't work with you anymore. That's what a guy is saying, right? I'm saying women are that way, and I'm not going to work with them in that scenario, right? I could give a rat's ass about guys versus women. They're completely different, and you made some of the points as to how they're different. And we need to recognize those things, but not every time somebody makes a comment. Every time someone makes a comment. This happened after I was out of high school. Well, when I was in high school, they started using the phrase, everybody's opinion matters. And you should have seen the uproar. I mean, we were remembering stuff that Billy said 6 weeks ago, and we're like, no, Billy had an opinion 6 weeks ago, and he's a retard. He's an idiot. That guy's a fool. And the teachers, they literally, the whole teaching institution started introducing, it's like the news nowadays where every news media outlet says the same thing. They all get a paper and this is what we're supposed to say, blah, 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 blah. Every channel's going blah, 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 blah. And people then go, oh, the news said that. So, and they had every teacher start saying these things at the same time. That's called programming. That's called brainwashing. And boy, the resistance was massive. It was hilarious. And the next generation that came through was a little more like that, the next generation. And now the programming is, and this is noise and distraction for society. The programming is anytime somebody says something, your counterpoint matters just as much as their point, even if it doesn't even pertain to the conversation that was going on. People's brains go from here to here, and they don't remember what was going on over here because this is more important, because my thought now is more important than what was being talked about.
So it's like, let's bring it back to martial arts. Does that sound like fun? So
We can't
yes,
bring it back to martial arts because we never were on martial arts
well, we have been in the other podcasts, so listen to other podcasts.
in the past at some point.
Yeah. So good old Karate Kid was right. That the movie, is all right.
Boys wax off. Yep.
Yep. And so what you're talking about, we started the topic about, do women really not want to work as hard? But the underlying point.
It wasn't a question, it was a statement.
The underlying point is people are reacting by rote rather than being flexible, trying to understand that they're just constantly as men versus women versus men, this versus that versus that. And
Not
so,
with me.
well, what I'm getting at, that's the martial arts you taught me that we train, right?
What?
Is it's not just this person does this, you do that.
Right.
It's like, or you could do this, or if there's a slight change in energy, you go this way. And what you're saying is someone is throwing a punch and the only tool that people have been taught is a parry. And then it leaves them open to someone who actually knows
how to counter a parry.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, that what's amazing about life are the metaphors, right? And how things, I just wanted to be in contact with you.
I'm getting my love languages.
And I thought we could demo something. You have to find your other ways, your other routes, right?
Yeah, you have to have the sensitivity, you have to have the awareness, you have
be
to have
dynamic.
environmental awareness, body awareness, timing, cadence, fighting measure, rhythm, speed, quickness, strength. You have to have all of it.
Right.
You can't just be quick because you might not have anything on your punch.
And that's the thing too, as I've learned, John, I hope you've noticed in the last year, since I'm not just reacting to and assuming and taking the one route, this is what I was programmed to do.
None of this was about you, Tara.
You can equate it to anything in life, right? Anytime you see a novice and they have a hammer and everything is a nail, right? And so to be more dynamic and even just stretch your brain.
Because they have that one tool, as soon as they lose that tool, they can't pound in a nail because they never had any other perspective. You could use a wrench, you could use a board, you could use a rock, you could use your friend's head. There's all these things. And so none of this was about you. However, there is learning in everything, right? Mm-hmm. So if any of this you could learn from, then it was all about you. And not to take offense and go, oh my gosh,
my brain is exploding.
Not to take offense to it, because then you realize I have learning here, so it must have been about me. No, learning is learning. If you step outside and you step in a puddle that you didn't see, the learning is that, first of all, your shoes aren't waterproof, that puddle was deep, water is wet, and you weren't paying attention. Now, the one thing you can blame on yourself, you weren't paying attention, right? But the other 10 things are learning. And most people stop at the personal blame, even of themselves, when they're by themselves, and they don't learn. Because they were only taught study for this test. They were only taught make this one person at the front of the room happy and your life will be great. And none of that is true. You need to actually know the reason for the answer on the test. The dumbing down of kids in the school system is inherent in the system itself. And so we have to teach, one of the books that I gave my son when he was relatively young was called The Language Police. And it was how the language is being shifted and changed. Another book I gave him was The Creature from Jekyll Island when he was like 14. And so he learned about the monetary system and where it came from. So those two books, I also gave him How to Win Friends and Influence People and tons of other books, right? But between The Language Police and The Creature from Jekyll Island, you 100% understand what has happened in America over the last 60, 70 years, 80 years, since 1934.
So what you're saying is painting the fence and waxing the car were not to paint the fence and wax the car. As a
Are you being a philosopher now?
Yep, I'm being a Karate Kid philosopher.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't paint the fence and wax the car.
Yeah, But that's not the original purpose.
Right.
You find out later.
If you watch The Karate Kid, everybody's seen The Karate Kid.
Well,
These are movements that are used in martial arts. That is what they're showing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you do something enough times, it becomes instinctual, and then, wax on, wax off just happens then.
Right. So let's get back to our personal life a little bit more and work.
Okay.
So tell me how you feel. What do you think and feel when, I'm putting in 10 and 12-hour days and I'm like,
I feel like I have a lot of space and a lot of time to myself.
Yeah. And what does that do for you? How long is that good? Does that feel good?
I'll let you know.
I'll
let you know when I'm fed up with it. No, we are relatively young, right? I'm more middle-aged, you're younger than me.
Thank you.
And we are working we're building businesses. So there is work that needs to happen. We're doing what we need to do.
Because I'll tell you personally, when it can be quite a internal struggle when I'm thinking, I have all these things to do today. Part of my list that didn't get done yesterday is on today. And part of that is from last week. And I have all these things ahead of me. And I'm like, but no, I need to take this time to be with John, whatever it may be.
Well, you need downtime too, because you've burnt out a few times in the past based upon your own, this is what I got to do. This is what I'm going to do. And everybody does that. It's just like anything, you played softball in high school, and I've hit a few baseballs and softballs in my time. And when you hit the ball in the sweet spot of the bat, you need probably a third less force and, all these types of dynamics, right? That ball is going to fly, right? It's just hits in the meat of the bat, and the ball is perfectly on center, and it's just going to fly exactly where you want it to. Mm-hmm. With less effort than if it hit, slightly low on the bat and it's going to bounce down right in front of the pitcher, and it might go by him, but he might catch it, or she, or if you're playing softball, or if you're playing big ball or small ball. And so, and you put all this effort on it, you even pulled a muscle, you pulled something in your shoulder because you swung so hard. And so you need to swing at lots of balls. You need to swing many times. You need to go to, why do they have a batting cage? It's not because it's so much fun hitting a ball, it's because you need repetition. And once you do that over and over and over and over again, your body actually starts getting programmed into hitting correctly and seeing the ball, and it becomes instinct. The idea that you could see 100-mile-an-hour ball and correctly hit it in baseball is almost untenable. But if you've done it thousands of times, yeah, you will see it. Shooters, guys that shoot, after a while you start seeing the bullet, and people are like, you can't see a bullet. That thing's traveling 1,800 feet a second. There's no way you can. Well, yeah, you can. The human body has acute senses that can be finely tuned and trained to sense and see and feel. We have seismometers, right? That sense tremors, right? Well, evidently I'm a seismometer, because me and my family and we were everybody with my parents and everybody, we were in a different state. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I was nauseous and I felt like I needed to leave the area. And my mom had woken up too.
She felt it too.
And we just packed up the vehicle and left. Well, the next day we found out that there was tremors in the fault line in that area.
It was like Illinois. It was like some, not where you'd experience a big earthquake.
It was the state next to Illinois. What's the?
Indiana.
Indiana, yeah. And so we were picking that up from quite a ways away, mm-hmm. and we left. So if there had been a major earthquake, we would have been saved. Well, I've never tuned myself to the piezoelectric effect of rocks rubbing together, right? But evidently, I have a sense for that. Now, you could train that. You could train yourself in anything. And so you are right now in the process, and this is like a business talk. I got a guy calling from another country later today for business mentorship. And this is a business talk, right? You have to go through, everybody thinks when things aren't going their way that, you know, they're just failing and it's not going to work and there's nothing ever going to happen. And it's like, good, you got cash in the bank, you're having some troubles, you got people working with you and for you, and you're still moving forward. This is excellent. You know, because the alternative is you have no cash in the bank, you haven't paid your employees, you got no sales, you owe people lots of money, you know, the alternative is terrible.
Yeah.
You know, but what's going on if you're still sitting there going, you know, hey, I only got 50 grand in the bank and in the next 6 weeks I've got $100,000 worth of bills. I'm excited for you. You know, I'm like, you're halfway there. Well, no, because I got $20,000 in payroll in the next 6 weeks and you know, and it's like, no, you're halfway there. You got 50 grand right now. So what does your business do to generate income? Do more of that, right? Energize your team. Say in the next 3 weeks, we need to do this. We're going to launch this. We're going to do that. We're going to put this in place. We're going to call this advertiser. We're going to call this customer. We're going to call this vendor. We're going to do these things and, you know, and make it happen. You know, that's a great position to be in. You know, right now you're sitting here, we're doing a podcast for ourselves. You're running a business, I'm running a business. We're doing a podcast, I should say, with ourselves for whoever needs to listen to this. And we're in a position where we can do a podcast while we're running all of our business and living our lives. And so we're in a phenomenal position. We're not sitting here going, this is our GoFundMe message, please help. You know, we're not asking anybody for money. You know, we're making money, we're making decisions, we're moving, we're shaking, we're rocking and rolling, and we're pulling back in certain areas, and we're moving ahead in other areas. And you know, this is business, this is life. Nothing's guaranteed. Nobody has a promise of prosperity, but the number one thing for you and I is that our relationship is good. You said it. I need to take this time to be with my husband. Well, what does that do for you? That's a question.
For me, spending time with you is like recalibrating.
Okay, so you're watching a stupid show, you're rubbing my feet, what does all that do? That shows me that you love me, that you care, that gives you closeness to me, at least to my feet. And you know, and that's something you've always done. You ever since we got together, you've volunteered to rub my feet. You've liked, you know, maybe it was playing with the acupressure points and trying to figure out stuff early on when you were going through yoga training or whatever spurred you on to want to rub my feet. You know, maybe I just said, oh, my foot is sore, and you picked it up and just started rubbing it. But that is time. And yeah, we're sitting on the couch next to each other. We're kind of snuggling. We hold hands. We kiss every now and then. We're laughing about the show. Sometimes we shut off the show and we talk about it. The next day we can relate to each other and talk about it. We have some things going on. And you know, the quality of this show is such that it actually gives you scenarios and situations and thought-provoking topics and the depth of the conversation and the decisions people are making, that it's actually, there's some good examples for real life. It's not just a pop comedy show, a sitcom where the dad is getting ripped on by all the women in the family and, you know, and getting put down constantly. And, you know, it's not one of those. You know, I recommend people don't watch those because your life is going to turn out that way. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to move to Montana and get a 700,000 acre ranch, but you know, we run business and we align more with the people on that show than we do on a sitcom. You know, and it doesn't mean we're ranchers and, you know, none of that. It just means when you watch it, you go, yeah, well, yeah, that's a decision I'd make. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you're going to fight for that. Yeah, you're not going to put up with that. Yeah, that, you know, I'm glad they came out with that show because TV for years has been pretty disgusting. You know, I don't watch sitcoms. We don't watch sitcoms. You know, we don't. The last one I saw was maybe when I was in high school. You know, it was the Love and Marriage, you know, with Al Bundy. You know, that's probably the last sitcom I ever watched.
Married with Children.
Married with Children, yeah.
But
Love and Marriage.
Christina.
That was the song.
That was the song.
Love and Marriage. Yeah, Christina, what's her name?
Applegate.
Applegate, yeah. Ooh. Um,
Was that a ooh or a ooh?
yeah, she was a cutie.
Okay.
Yeah, I never watched SNL. I couldn't stand Seinfeld. You know, people said all these shows and I'd watch them and I'm like, wow. I'm just like, I can't, you
I'm
know.
going to point out something that's interesting in one of the episodes we watched recently. So the main character, the ranch owner, is played by Kevin Costner,
Yep.
and he has 3 kids at this point in the movie, and
Well, the
two
fourth
of
one died.
yeah. So he has a daughter who basically. All right, so we had to take a pause there, but so in a recent episode on Yellowstone, the main character, Kevin Costner, who's the dad who owns the whole ranch, CEO essentially, and had 3 kids
Four, one adopted.
okay, but you don't know that at a certain point in the movie, so
Right.
or series, spoiler alert. He has a daughter who's like, he said to her, you would have been a good cowboy, and she's like, yeah, and so she's a real badass kind of boss babe kind of person. And then another son who apparently was formerly in the military and is coming up through the ranks, so to speak, in the family business, and is showing prospects, but doesn't have the passion like Beth, the daughter, has. And what's interesting, so Beth she's apparently 35 in the movie at this point in the series, and they have a hired hand who's basically pretty much part of the family, but he knows his place, that he's like the lead guy on the ranch, and they've always had a thing for each other, but it's kind of been on the down low, and they eventually want to get married 20 years later, and the dad, Kevin Costner, says, do you want to marry him? And she's like, yeah, Daddy, I want to marry him.
If he asked me, she said.
She's really tough, but she called, still Daddy, yeah, Daddy, and it's just interesting dynamics. That's why I bring it up. And the dad says, well, he won't ask me, because of his position and respect,
Right.
and
He won't put me in that position because if I had to say, but the insinuation is if he had to say no, that would cause problems.
right.
So he won't even ask.
So basically, they got to the point where she had to ask her dad for her own hand in marriage to marry this guy,
Rip.
And so it's quite a plot twist. It's like, are we getting feminist agenda here, or what's going on? And so then she gets her dad's permission for her own hand in marriage, and then she goes to, the next day she has a ring for Rip and proposes to him. And so it's like, so John, I'd really like to know your opinion on this plot twist. Are we really, secretly getting the feminist agenda, or, is this just business? That it was, as a business, you could see like, okay, when you involve personal relationships with business, yeah, you have to be careful, like who you're inviting to Thanksgiving, if you're in family business too. This is another side example. So what did you think of that?
Well, it all made sense to me. I've had employees for a very long time, and there are special relationships that get developed outside of your family, and there are people that perform, in areas your family doesn't, or in areas that they don't want to, and so there are special relationships, and you have to be very careful with those because your family's always your family, whether you want them to be or not. And but you could lose a relationship with somebody that works for you or you work with very quickly and never get it back because, they're not bound to you. They're not bound to be in your life. So all of it made total sense to me. I actually, before that even happened, I figured that was the scenario, that he would love to marry John's daughter, but he is in a position where if he asks, it's like it's like being an employee and asking for a raise. You have to be very careful because you're literally talking about divorce. Because if you ask for a raise and your employer has to say no, you're saying, I am valuing myself more than you are currently valuing me, and I need more money in order to feel that I'm getting paid for what I'm worth. And the employer has to say no because they either can't afford it or, well, mostly that would be the reason. Or maybe there's a pay scale at the company that doesn't afford in that position. And so it might be out of your manager's hands that they can or can't do it. And so, yeah, you're literally saying, I don't think you're valuing me enough. What I would do, what I tell guys that ask questions, I say, ask your value, ask your worth. Go in and before you ever want to raise, go in and say, am I bringing value to the company? Do I do the things you need me to do to bring the value? And at what level am I valued? I'm getting paid, let's say you're getting paid $25 an hour. Am I making the company at least $75 an hour for every hour I work? And hopefully your manager or the owner would give you an honest answer and say, you are very valuable in this company, and coming soon, you're going to get a raise. Let's keep going, keep things moving the way they are, and keep yourself in the position you're in. And if you can strive a little more, that would help. And that's a relationship, right? That's a way to put yourself in a position where the owner says, geez, I do need to pay this guy a little bit more. I do need to give him a couple dollar raise or a $10 raise, whatever it is, $5 raise. And it's a lot of times the business owner is so busy and so preoccupied with so many things, they can neglect without neglecting, right? They miss it. They're not paying attention to, you can't pay attention to everything. And then sometimes you go, oh shoot, I should have gave that guy a raise 6 months ago, and sometimes they'll back pay you, and so, but just be valuable, be the person they can't live without. And but always mention it, always say, hey, I hope I'm bringing value. I hope I'm making at least 3 times what you're paying me. And you develop that relationship and that value and that awareness as a financial person, somebody dealing with finances. You'll give concern and they'll appreciate that, so.
That's great advice.
I'm getting mauled by our kitten. Come on. Jeez.
It's time to play.
Come here.
Well, if I'm going to go back real quick is interesting to me in the movie, the series, that scene, that whole scenario about her asking for her own hand in marriage, because first of all, it states that she has respect for the tradition of the father's hand being or her hand being asked of the father for marriage.
Yeah, for as modern and as bad boss babe she is, right. She is very traditional.
And also respectful of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, because she does have such a business-like mentality, as her character is very much about business. And so it is like, oh, you have to have this hierarchy. Otherwise you have mutiny, right? You have to have a respect for the hierarchy and these rules or traditions. Otherwise you have discord, which shows very clearly in the series that they don't tolerate going out of bounds, right? That things are meant to be a certain way because there are so many things going on that are life and death.
And things do work a certain way. I mean, just because you want something to be a certain way doesn't mean it's ever going to be. Things have to happen a certain way. And if you spent, and you have now as a business owner, but if you spent a month with a business owner, you would be freaked out at everything they deal with. If you've only been an employee your entire life and you think you understand what it's like to own a business, you have no idea. And because the business owner will never tell you certain things. You'll never know everything. There have been times in my business life where I had, upwards of $20,000 a week in payroll, which doesn't sound like that much, but as a sole a sole proprietor business owner with employees, not sole proprietor per se, but as an LLC, you know, as a business owner with employees, up to 18 employees, you know, having a $30,000 a week payroll is a lot. And sometimes, oh, God, jeez, she's getting me. Sometimes I would be at the point where I would only have $1,000 in the account after payroll, and by next week I would have to have another $30,000+ for bills and payroll. So there are a lot of things that you have to, after taking care of the kitten.
Big kitten now.
Yeah, it's there are so many things. The business talks can go on and on and on, but you know, so many people like to say, oh, if you're in business, do this, do that, and multiply this and quantify that, and but there are daily operations, and and there are lots of things that you need to learn, things that you need to take care of in order to get to that quantification and exponential growth and 10x this and 12x that and all this fun stuff. You know, you have to learn to run your business first. And so, yeah, we could go on for a long time, but how long have we been going? Ooh, an hour and 20 minutes. Hey, bonus. So this is a non-sponsored advertisement. Native Root Coffee, nativerootcoffee.com. Look at that. That's Anna and Isidro. Anna and Isidro. We stayed at their house when we went to Colombia. We saw their fields. That coffee is grown at over 6,000 feet above sea level, and it is phenomenal. nativerootcoffee.com. You too can drink coffee from the Andes Mountains, and it's delicious. And we're not sponsored by Native Root. That's how much we like it. Later.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.